A perpetual bridesmaid grows frustrated when her sister gets engaged to her boss. Special guest Grace Noah joins us to chat about attractive characters acting unethically, the positive aspects of being a people pleaser, and narrating a wedding slideshow live. Then we see if 27 Dresses stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 528th episode of The Test of Time. I'm James Brief, and joining me as always, my buddy and pal, the co-host and the director of this podcast, Alan Noah.
Hi, that's me, and we have a very, very, very special guest on the show today. I'm so excited. It's my daughter, Grace Noah.
Hi.
Grace, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So this is the first time that you are going to be here for a whole episode to review a movie. It's not your first time on The Test of Time.
No.
I think back on our Jurassic Park episode, James interviewed you and Eli. We didn't use your real name then. I think you went by Hermione.
Mm-hmm.
And your brother was Ron Weasley, right?
No.
Fred.
Yeah.
And since then, I have hoped and asked you to come on the podcast many times. I thought you were going to come on for the Mean Girls episode. You didn't want to. I thought for sure you were going to want to come on to talk about Lilo and Stitch. I guess my first question is, why did you want to come on now?
For the Five Timers hoodie.
Uh-huh. Okay, everyone else has one. Mom has one. Eli, Grandma, Aunt Sam.
No, I just felt like it was my time.
Okay, I respect that. So why don't you tell James the story of how 27 Dresses came up in conversation?
Well, we were driving, and my aunt's wedding was coming up, and I didn't find a dress. So I was looking through, and I said that I had 12 dresses. Oh, wait, no, 27 dresses.
Right. And then I was like, oh, like that movie. And you had seen this movie before?
Yes.
At a sleepover or something?
Yeah.
All right. I had never seen this movie before. James, you had?
I had seen this once before, and I didn't remember anything about this film. The only thing I misremembered was that Katherine Heigl's character was a wedding planner.
Okay.
And to be fair, watching the film again, I still thought she was a wedding planner for a little bit into this film.
I mean, she does a lot of planning for weddings, but she is not a professional wedding planner.
Does it for free.
Well, James, why don't you kick us off by telling our listeners what this movie is all about?
Right, so this movie is about Jane Nichols, a woman who loves wedding and has been a bridesmaid 27 times, but hasn't yet found her Mr. Right. Jane secretly pines for her boss, George, but when her sister Tess comes to visit, she and George hit it off, and they quickly become engaged. Jane crosses paths with cynical wedding columnist Kevin Doyle, who decides to write a column about this perpetual bridesmaid. As they spend more time together, Kevin comes to admire Jane's generosity and realize that she's been sacrificing her own happiness to please everyone else. Jane ultimately learns to stand up for herself, confront long-buried resentments, and pursue the life and love that she truly wants. A wedding to Kevin with 27 bridesmaids in attendance to celebrate her long-awaited nuptials.
Okay, so when this movie came out back in 2008, how did it do at the box office?
It was a modestly budget movie when it came out on January 18th, 2008. So, January is not exactly, the most successful time for movies. It had a $30 million budget. It opened at number 2 with $23 million. Cloverfield, that was one of those surprise hits that January.
We watched that.
Yeah.
It wound up being $76 million on a $30 million budget, so very well in the States, $162 million worldwide, but the box office was 75% women. So this was a lot of women going with their girlfriends.
Right, and this movie was written by Aline Brosh McKenna, who wrote The Devil Wears Prada, That's a movie that you like, Grace, right?
Yeah.
Well, she wrote the screenplay.
Yes. And apparently the original script for this movie was written before Devil Wears Prada, and it was just kind of kicking around Hollywood. And it wasn't until Devil Wears Prada came out and was a big hit that this movie was finally greenlit. And the script apparently changed quite a bit. In earlier versions, it was a lot more about the relationship between Jane and Tess. And then in subsequent rewrites, it became more of a rom-com, focusing more on the relationship. But when we were in the car, when we were talking about this movie, something else that came up was one of your friends, she has a lot of cousins, and she's been to so many weddings.
Yeah.
And Aunt Sam's wedding was just your second wedding. But I think I made some joke that Delaney has been to weddings while she's been at other weddings. And then you were like, oh, that's the beginning of 27 Dresses.
Yeah.
Which is both funny as a joke, but also insane.
Well, you have two friends.
But then you either pick one, or you go to one for the first half and then go to the other for the second half.
But you're maid of honors at both. So you gotta do all of it at both.
But that's impossible.
Well, she made it work.
It's certainly reasonable. If they're both in New York City, you can absolutely make both of them. It doesn't stretch the imagination that she does that. I don't think. She's not like taking a boat every time, and it's like, all right, well, that's going to also be 45 minutes of watching her on a ferry.
But she's taking a taxi back and forth. She offers the guy $300 to go from Manhattan to Brooklyn and back several times, knowing how much taxis cost now. That's a terrible deal for the taxi driver, who ultimately only gets $140 because he was looking in his rearview mirror, which was against the rules because she was changing. But also, when you're driving, you do need to look in your rearview mirror.
And this is the event where she meets James Marsden, right?
Correct, Kevin. And Kevin finds her Filofax, her paper calendar, and this is outdated in 2008. He makes a joke about it, that there's digital ways to have calendars. Some people do still like paper calendars. Like who?
Me?
No, I meant like Grandma.
Oh, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Grandma.
I've never seen her with a paper calendar.
Oh, yeah, she has a paper calendar, and then when I try to make plans with her, she says, oh, I have to go home and check the calendar. I'm like, there's a way to do it where it's always with you. And she likes the paper one. Fine. But Kevin finds the Filofax and then immediately opens it and starts going through it. Then we find out that he's a writer at the paper, and yeah, he's doing wedding announcements, which isn't journalism per se, but still, that is highly unethical. Journalist or not, that's an invasion of privacy, and I kind of didn't like him out of the gate for that reason.
I don't think that it's right, but curiosity sometimes takes over.
Oh, okay. You would do it?
I mean, it depends on the person. If it's a random stranger, then it's less meaningful, but if it's someone that you're close to, I can also see how you wouldn't want to do that. But I feel like it could go either way.
I'm going to be careful about any of my personal things I leave around the house.
I 100% agree with what Grace says. It really depends on the person. Like a lot of things in this movie, it really depends on one thing, what kind of person it is. Is this character very, very attractive? There's going to be some really wrong things that these characters do. And I think a lot of it that the audience also forgives because, oh, that person's very handsome or very attractive.
I guess.
For example, Jane says to Kevin, excuse me, can you go be a creep somewhere else while this guy is talking to her? And he says, like, no, and keeps hitting on her. Again, James Marsden, he's also very attractive and he has a very nice smile. And this movie does that a lot.
To your point, James, Kevin is hitting on Jane and she keeps rejecting him. But the whole thing about Jane that they say explicitly, repeatedly throughout this movie is that she just can't say no. When people ask her for something, she says yes. But right out of the gate, we see her telling Kevin no when he's asking her out, when he wants to talk to her, when he wants to meet up with her. She's rejecting him repeatedly. She's mean to the taxi driver. She tells him, don't look at me. She is able to tell people no. Typically, it's more men that she's saying no to, and when a female asks her for a favor that is wedding related, that's where she says yes.
I think she hits a weak point, kind of. Like when it's weddings, she thinks she's helping them out and doesn't want to be annoying, and it's their day. But when it's someone just asking her out, she can reject them, and it's not putting as much of a burden on them.
Right, and she is obsessed with weddings. We see the flashback from when she was a kid. That is her favorite thing in the world, is weddings, and she loves weddings, and she wants to get married herself, but she doesn't have a lot of free time to date because she's busy planning 27 other weddings, and she's in love with her boss, George. And she's a people pleaser. I kind of feel like that's a good personality trait if you're a personal assistant.
It can definitely be good, but there's also downfalls on it.
Definitely. I'm just saying, like, for her job.
Yes.
If it's your job to be a personal assistant and you have to anticipate their every need, you want someone in that role who is going to go above and beyond. And this quote-unquote character flaw of Jane, it does help her at work. And I would also say she has 27 friends who wanted her to be in their wedding party. So she's got a lot of friends. Like, she's doing something right.
Yeah.
I guess my point is this character flaw, one, is kind of inconsistent, and two, I feel like the movie doesn't ever talk about the positive aspects of this part of her personality.
I also kind of thought that she has what seems to be a nice job and making it in New York City, but she doesn't have a man and she's not married, so that's the problem in her life. I was wondering if it was going there first, but there's a little bit to that, a little bit of like, always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
I think you touched on something really interesting there, where the movie makes Jane obsessed with weddings, but not being married. I think maybe that's a wise decision, because then you're kind of butting up against some feminist, anti-feminist themes about this woman just wants to be somebody's wife. And that's not what Jane wants. She is just focused on weddings and not marriage. Cool, but those two things are
hand in hand.
Yeah, they really are very, very related.
Yes.
And Kevin, he is anti-wedding. He thinks they're overly commercial and too expensive. He's also anti-marriage. He says that it's the last legal form of slavery. We kind of get his backstory a little bit. He was left at the altar.
That has to have some impact on you.
Sure. At least we understand that about Kevin. We know why he has these feelings. We know why Jane loves weddings, but we don't really know what she thinks or how she feels about being married.
Yeah, we just know how others think she feels, but not her own personal views.
Right. I feel like that's just a missing component.
I know I might be stretching it, but I'm not a guy who's great with fashion or a judge of fashion. I have to say the montage of the wedding dresses, Katherine Heigl, she's a beautiful actress with a beautiful figure, and I kind of thought she looked great in all these dresses. Even, in the context of, yeah, they're dressed up like 18th century, but it seems to be that everyone there is dressed like 18th century. That seems fun. Whatever it was, I generally thought she kind of looked very nice in everything. So were we supposed to think that they looked hideous?
The idea was that all the dresses were supposed to look outlandish and garish, and it's a running gag that the brides say, you can just shorten it and wear it later. And she says, you sure can, knowing that she never will. During production of the movie, they bumped into that thing that you just said, James. She's so beautiful. She looks great in everything. It doesn't matter what the dress is. But I'm curious to get your perspective on this, Grace. What did you think of the dresses?
I mean, I thought obviously some of them were crazy and unethical, but I think that it makes a wedding more fun and more memorable. Like with the girls wear suits and men wear dresses, I feel like that's just kind of a fun spin on things and can make it just a better time.
Right, so that wedding, they're clearly playing with traditional gender roles. That's fun. Some of them are cultural outfits, which, if you're wearing a Japanese dress at a Japanese wedding, cool. If you're just playing dress up, well, then that's problematic. Yeah. Some of them, I think, are just meant to be loud and garish and, bright yellow and so much tulle and the high necks and things like that are just supposed to look terrible on anyone. I think the movie is trying to make Katherine Heigl look frumpy and make Tess, her sister, look beautiful. Malin Ackerman is beautiful. So is Katherine Heigl. They're both very, very attractive Hollywood actresses. So to make one the quote-unquote pretty one, eye roll.
Yeah.
Malin Ackerman played the role very well, that she was the prettier, more outgoing, more popular sister.
Well, let's talk about Tess for a bit, because Tess and George are attracted to each other, and Tess decides to lie to George about every aspect of her personality.
Yeah.
She lies about being a vegetarian. Did that bother you as a actual vegetarian?
It didn't necessarily bother me, but I felt like if you're gonna lie about something and stay the same, that's even worse. Like, if you're gonna lie about something, at least convert to being a vegetarian and don't eat ribs with your wedding ring on, or engagement ring.
Right.
That seems like a bad move.
Well, lying about being vegetarian, to me, that's extra dumb, because if you're never going to eat meat with this person who you're marrying, you'll basically be vegetarian. And yeah, you can sneak off and have a burger every now and again when your spouse isn't around, sure. But if you don't have meat in the home and you never eat meat when you go to restaurants, eventually, after a while, you'll probably be vegetarian.
Yeah.
You're right. You could decide at that moment that this person is worth giving up meat for. I think it would also be perfectly appropriate if you met someone like that saying, I'm not, but I've always been very interested in that. And, when you go on your date, you go somewhere vegetarian and, you just don't eat meat anymore.
Sure. Also, she lies about loving the outdoors and going on hikes. That's going to be harder to fake. We don't really have a clear sense of time, or at least I didn't, in terms of how long Tess and George are together, how long this movie spans. It's got to be a couple months. You would think this guy who's constantly outdoors and constantly doing outdoorsy things would want to go on a hike with his new girlfriend. If she's never hiked before, okay, fine. He can show her new shoes and a cool trail that he likes or whatever. But he's going to be able to tell that she's not an experienced hiker. The lying thing makes me dislike Tess and kind of make me think that George is an idiot for not realizing.
Yeah, and George definitely is more of a serious hiker. Like, does he do Mount Everest? And
yeah, he's a mountain climber.
Yeah. So I feel like Tess would be dragged into that stuff if she says that she likes it, and it wouldn't just necessarily be simple trails, and it'll get more complex if she says that she loves doing it.
Right. It's just dumb. And Tess, to me, is kind of cartoonishly evil in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's not her fault that she's getting married first, and so she gets the mom's wedding dress. Okay, but then she destroys it when she knows that her sister wants to wear it someday. That's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
She takes the wedding venue. She's throwing this wedding together very quickly, and she puts everything on Jane. She's just horrifically insensitive.
And especially the food tasting. I felt like that was kind of weird that she wasn't there and sent Jane to do it, because that's a big part of your wedding and you're not even present for it.
That's very true. Also super weird is the fact that Kevin is there.
Yeah.
Okay, he's writing the article. He still shows up to way, way too many things. And I wasn't clear if Kevin was planning to write the article about Jane and also do a story on Tess and George in the conventional wedding announcements section, or if he was lying about that completely and he only wanted to do the story on Jane. It's a small detail, I realize, but what do you think?
I think that he was using Tess and George to get closer to Jane and learn more about, the 27 bridesmaid dresses. But I also think that he was planning on doing a little bit with Tess and George, because without it, it's kind of lying to them. And I don't think that that's very professional. But I don't think that he was going to write a article on Tess and George like he did for the other brides.
I don't understand the point of his original snarky article, and I'm also surprised he wrote it, because I thought even by the time he was in her apartment and the story of the dresses, I just thought it was kind of mean to write the story that he wrote at that moment. The one that he later goes, no, I don't want to write that one. I don't understand the point of, the meaning of his article.
Well, the reason that you don't understand it is because we don't really know what the article is. We know that Jane is devastated when she reads it, and she's furious and she's angry and he's ruined her life, but we don't know what he says. It's another thing that's missing in this movie.
To me, it seemed more that she was mad about him going behind her back and putting her face in the newspaper without letting her know. And he more just said the terrible things about Tess and how she's a bridezilla.
Right. Reporting on her without telling her that he's doing a story on her is highly unethical. Not to mention the fact that he sleeps with her. Also, why does Kevin use a pseudonym? He says he does it because he thinks the announcements are beneath him as a writer. He doesn't have to be anonymous. That's weird.
The New York Times wedding announcements are after the wedding. So that does kind of make sense, I would think. Because if they knew that the New York Times wedding guy is here, then maybe, although what is he, crashing every wedding? I guess he has to be invited, right?
No, that's not how it goes. People submit their stories about how they fell in love.
Right, exactly. No, that's right. My brother and sister-in-law were in it, so they had to have submitted it, and they were in the weekend after they were wed. So
Right.
You're right, it had to have been months in advance.
Yeah. There's nothing shady about it. But let's talk about their love story, Kevin and Jane. What did you think about it, Grace?
I don't know, because it's definitely sweet, but it's also really dumb.
How so? Say more.
Well, I think that trying to get to her through her sister and doesn't take no for an answer is kind of annoying and keep on pushing, but it's sweet in the sense that he doesn't give up because he really likes her, and in the end it works out, but I guess those are kind of opposites.
Well, so much of the movie is them debating weddings and a little bit marriage. You love weddings, and I think weddings are dumb. Well, weddings are great because of this. Yeah, but weddings are dumb because of that. That is so much of their back and forth. Okay, fine. Sometimes it's fun to spar with someone who you disagree with and you keep coming back to this one topic, but I don't see them falling in love. I get that she really likes his wedding announcements and she thinks he's a good writer, and the way that he writes about weddings, her favorite topic, is beautiful and she's drawn to that. But as soon as she knows that he's a cynic and he doesn't believe any of these beautiful things that he writes and that he doesn't really care about weddings and marriage, I would think that would be a dead end for her in terms of pursuing a relationship with him.
Well, I think she believed that he wasn't a cynic and that it was all kind of a mask to put on to seem cool, but he did have emotions about the marriage because, like she said, it's hard to fake those emotions when writing.
I mean, their romance is obviously it takes a turn when they get into this almost car accident and the car is just stuck in the mud. Then they go to a bar and they get excessively drunk.
Yeah.
It does seem that, the night hinges on, this near-death experience of the car ride. And they were fighting, I think, screaming at each other until the car accident.
Yeah.
And you have to factor in that they're both very good looking and had just come in from the rainstorm.
I'm curious to get your opinion on them singing Benny and the Jets.
That's like my favorite scene, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's true love then, because they are very drunk, but it just seems like they have a connection, and when the hard times and when they're fighting isn't happening, they're having a great time and having fun together.
I agree, because until we have the revelation in the diner about the article coming out, you can see they are compatible, or at least compatible enough to, start going on dates. And, you're not the enemies that you once thought you were. It's not terrible, but it's also, there's not that much there. Although I do agree, I think the karaoke is a nice thing, because I think karaoke, it is a nice way to convey emotion weirdly.
Well, this isn't karaoke. This is them just singing drunkenly along with the song.
Yes, but I'm saying just singing a song, that's the first of a good date.
I think the joke is that everybody knows Benny and the Jets, and nobody knows the rest of the words to the song.
Yes.
Do you know any other words to that song?
No.
Okay.
I know, hey kids, shake it loose together.
Oh, that's good. She's got electric boots, a mohair suit.
Well,
I read it in a magazine.
Well, I thought that was included in the Benny and the Jets.
No, that's before.
Okay, well, I know that too.
Well, people think that he says she's got electric boobs.
Who actually thinks that?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. To me, there has already been the perfect moment in a movie where people sing along to an Elton John song. That's in Almost Famous. I don't think you've seen that, have you?
No.
Okay, that's a really good movie. They all sing to Tiny Dancer, and that's a sweet moment. This is played for laughs. Whatever. So eventually, Jane is pushed to her breaking point, and she basically sabotages her sister's wedding with the slideshow. First off, slideshow montages, totally a thing. People have them all the time at weddings. They never have it with live narration.
No.
I'm going to stop you right there. At my brother's wedding, which would be somewhere around when this was filmed, I live narrated a photo slideshow at my brother's wedding.
That's weird. But Jane has a right to be angry at Tess. But what she does is pretty horrific.
Yeah.
I like that her friend basically calls her out on it and tells her, you did a terrible thing. You know that because you feel terrible right now. It's misdirected anger, and, she's taking out her frustrations on her sister, which is wrong, even though her sister is lying and probably shouldn't marry George.
Yeah, but she didn't have to do it in that moment, in that time.
Yeah. She was publicly humiliated with the article, so now she's publicly humiliating her sister. But as bad as it is, Tess pretty much just forgives her right away. They have one conversation.
The next day.
Right. Oh, but she quits because she realizes that she's too much of a people pleaser, and that by being so devoted to George that she has shut herself off. I don't really get it. I feel like she could realize that her crush on George is pointless and is going nowhere, but she doesn't have to quit. It must be a good job, because she is affording all of these wedding parties, all of these dresses. I mean, being a bridesmaid is really expensive, and she's done it 27 times, and her apartment is huge. I mean, every New York City apartment in the movies is huge and gorgeous, and, the characters shouldn't be able to afford them. But if he's paying her that much, she's got a good thing going with this job.
Yeah, definitely.
They kiss, and okay, it didn't work for them. They weren't into it. Fine.
I feel like that was kind of messed up, though. Like, right after your wedding, gets called off, you kiss your ex-fiance's sister? That's messed up.
That is a messed up thing that George does, for sure. But throughout the movie, he's not a terrible guy. And sometimes in rom-coms, the other guy is a terrible person, and why does she like him? And then at the end, she discovers that he's actually a jerk. George really isn't a jerk. He is a boss who is not hitting on his subordinate, who clearly has a crush on him. He's very respectful about the dry cleaning thing. It's a misunderstanding that's played for laughs when he says, oh, our relationship hasn't gone to that place. I hope you're okay with it. And she's hoping that it's about the flowers. But he's asking her to pick up his dry cleaning, and he hasn't done that before. He wants to check in with her to make sure that's okay. That's really nice.
Yeah.
He's not a terrible guy throughout the movie.
No, absolutely not. Even that kiss, like, he had just been publicly humiliated down in the dumps, and like, he was not thinking straight. It's certainly better than had he tried to kiss the ex-fiance's sister like a month later. I think that might be a little more weird when everyone was at level head and he just asks her out or something.
Yeah. Predictably, Jane and Kevin get together at the end. It happens at someone else's wedding, because Kevin's covering it and Jane crashes it, which, as a person who loves weddings and respects the sanctity of weddings and will wear anything because it's the bride's special day and she's not going to complain, she just crashes some stranger's wedding, which you would think she wouldn't do.
Yeah, but she's also very good looking.
Sure, neat. But they get together. Were you expecting Jane and Kevin to get together?
Yeah, I feel like that part was kind of predictable.
Yeah.
I didn't really think their romance was that amazing that I was so happy that they were getting married. I would have been perfectly happy with them dating, but the final shot of when it pans out and you realize that there are 27 bridesmaids, that's a great shot. This woman has 27 friends. I think that, to me, is such a nice send-off to her, more than just she marries James Marsden.
I get that the movie is kind of building to this joke of the 27 bridesmaids wearing the 27 dresses. But here's the thing. We saw her throw out the 27 dresses. Also, when she threw them out, she threw out all the hangers.
Yeah, we both said that.
Yeah.
It seems like hangers you keep.
I feel like no matter what, I'm constantly in need of more hangers. There's also a callback to the way that the groom looks at the bride when she walks down the aisle. That's Jane's favorite part of the wedding. That's also Kevin's favorite part of the wedding. So the camera lingers on Kevin when he first sees Jane at their wedding, but they're on a beach and he's just squinting, which makes sense. You know, the sun's in his eyes, whatever. But I felt like that should have been an impactful callback that didn't work.
Yeah. I felt like his face was like he was in shock, kind of seeing her. Yes, he was squinting from the sun, but he was also so happy. It seemed like a half smile, but I think he meant it in more of a, I'm so in love, I don't know how to express it.
Maybe he was squinting because her beauty was so radiant.
Sure.
Well, Grace, as our very special guest, I will ask you first. Do you think that 27 Dresses stands the test of time?
Well, that's kind of a hard question because there are definitely some parts that aren't still understood because I didn't understand all of it, like the slideshow, but there are also still the sweet moments and kind of predictable rom-com, but I think overall it does not stand the test of time, but it's still sometimes a nice movie to put on, but doesn't really relate to now.
Okay. And this was the second time you watched it the other night?
Yes.
Okay. Would you watch it again?
Yeah, maybe with some friends, but not as a serious, in-depth movie watching.
Okay. James, what do you think? Do you think the movie stands the test of time?
You know, Katherine Heigl, she wound up doing a ton of romantic comedies, and I think that she's well cast in this film. I buy her as kind of a sad woman. I don't quite understand why she's sad, but I buy her acting. I think James Marsden, he's very good in this film. My problem is that I got very angry at every single main character that I'm supposed to like. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a movie can do it so well that you get this great redemption at the end. Kevin, I think, wrongly writes this very mean article. Jane is awful to do what she did to her sister in public. Tess is bad for what she did for leading this guy on to marriage. It's like, look, fake a thing or two for the first date or two. Or, yeah, sure, now you're a hiker. Okay, great. You know, the worst that'll happen is you might get some exercise and fresh air. I didn't like her. Everyone at the end basically just says, I'm sorry. I don't get why everyone's forgiving them. And even Ed Burns' character, George, like, he could probably do better than Tess. There's a lot of nice acting in the film. And there's one line I really liked. It's when Jane says, when she's finding out that love isn't what she thought it was in weddings, she's like, it's like finding out my favorite love song is about a sandwich. I thought that was a very clever line. I laughed aloud at that. But for me, I just didn't really like the film as a whole. It's not a terrible movie. I'm probably not going to turn this film on to ever watch it again. So for me, no, it doesn't stand the test of time. That's 0 for 2, Al. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to start off by talking about Katherine Heigl. You said you think she was well cast in this. I disagree. Maybe in other roles, she is very, very, very funny. In this movie, she's not. And I don't think that's all her fault. I think a lot of that is the script. She isn't really given a lot to do. She goes for some physical comedy, which is not a thing that everyone can pull off. The year before this movie came out, she was famously in Knocked Up, and she criticized Knocked Up. That's a movie I think we should do on a movie night. I think you would like that, Grace. But she said that movie was sexist. We can discuss that when we do that movie on the podcast someday. I think she has some valid points there. I also think you could say that this movie has some sexist tropes in it. That there's this woman who's just dying to get married, and oh boy, I just want to have a wedding and I just want to be a bride. And yeah, some women are obsessed with getting married, but it just kind of plays right into that cliche. I think that's a shame, because there is something to the idea of a woman who constantly puts others' needs before their own. I don't want to explain this to you, Grace, but that's a thing that a lot of women experience. Some men too. There are men who are people pleasers as well. But for women, there is this external pressure to always do what other people want and put your own wants and needs second, or third, or fourth, or whatever.
Yeah.
But they just don't really explore that. They don't really get into that. And they make it just this love story that is dumb. The love story should not be the focus of this movie. The focus of this movie should be the relationship between Jane and Tess. Another movie that I would love to watch with you someday that I think you'll like, Grace, is Bridesmaids. And that movie is very much about the stress of being a bridesmaid and what that can do to friendships and relationships. The main character in that movie does have a love story. She does have a love interest, but it is the B story. I really think this movie would be better served if the story about Jane and Kevin was minimized greatly.
Yeah.
Also, just kind of in a big picture way, making a movie about a woman who wants to get married. I was thinking about that in a test of time lens. I'm curious, do you know what a trad wife is?
No.
Oh, okay. Basically, there are two trends at the moment. One is a lot of young women are postponing marriage. They're getting married later in life. They're not getting married at all. Maybe they'll just be partnered with somebody, move in, maybe have kids, but they don't need to go through the legal ceremony. And then there's this trad wife movement, which is basically that young women should get married very early, have a lot of babies, don't have a job, just be a traditional wife. That's what it stands for. And that's pretty anti-feminist, but if that's what people want to do, sure, go for it. I just think if a movie came out today in 2026 about a woman who desperately wants to get married, I think you'd have to explore that in some way.
Yeah, definitely.
Take a stand about weddings and in a bigger picture marriage. But I just feel like this movie is surface level. I don't care about the characters. I don't care about the relationships. And I'm going to say that it does not stand the test of time. But what I hope does stand the test of time is you coming on the test of time, Grace.
Thank you.
I hope you'll come back and earn that 5-timers hoodie.
Definitely will.
Yeah, that's a big question. What number is this episode for your daughter?
Well, this is her first.
So the Hermione does not count.
No, definitely not.
That's just an intro. That wasn't me, actually.
Yeah. Do you have an idea for what you want to do next?
Oh.
Okay, well, good news. You live in the same house as me. So,
wait, really?
Yeah, I'm just like across the hall.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, so whenever you think of another movie, let me know, and I will be happy to have you come back on. I love watching movies with you, and I love watching comedies with you, and I love seeing what you laugh at and what you don't laugh at. I'm sorry, am I doing a life lesson now?
A little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. Grace hates it when I turn everything into a life lesson. But I like watching movies with you, and I like talking about movies with you.
Well, that's very sweet.
Aw, thank you. This has been really fun. I'm so glad you came on, Grace.
Thank you for having me.
Literally anytime. But that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Road Trip, the 2000 movie starring Breckenmeyer. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about Euro Trip with special guest Eddie Perez-Cortez. So I'm very excited for that double feature. Those are going to be 2 really fun episodes. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Write to us. Let us know what you think about 27 Dresses, about being a bridesmaid, about Katherine Heigl, about James Marsden, about weddings, slideshows, ugly bridesmaid dresses, whatever. We love hearing from you. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.